So I'm sort of change the topic really. I'm just going to talk to you about reconstructing basically your paternal ancestral journey using commercial DNA test results. So basically you have to pinpoint an origin and then date that link. And then if you want to go even further back, you can retrace and also date each step along the way. So I'll just give you a little bit of background.
So it's now not working?
No.
Yeah, let me just, sorry, my bad. Should be going.
Yeah, okay.
See if the clicker works now?
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Okay, so just a quick introduction. So I was born in Dublin City, Ireland, and I've always been interested in my surname because my surname Bowes is quite rare in Dublin. And I wanted to know its origin. Yeah. Growing up in Ireland, everybody's Murphy, Kelly. Bowes just sounds very different. So, but my first interest is in biology. So I studied in Ph.D. chemistry, got a diploma with distinction. I studied in Ph.D. University here in Scotland, first class honours degree. I spent some time in Italy in research and industrial research labs. I got my Ph.D. in neuroimmunology from Glasgow Caledonian University, and I was in the Southern General Hospital in Glasgow University at the same time. So I did a postdoc in Dundee, so that's my first postdoc. And then I was a senior scientist from 2004 to 2010. So in academia, I survived 2 rounds of the crash, basically, when funding gets cut. And, well, research is expensive. When funding gets cut, it's only a matter of time you're looking for a new job. But 2010 was a very, very crucial time. And I'll mention this in a little bit. So I launched Irish and Scottish origins in 2011, and then the English origins 2012. I've never gotten around to Welsh origins, purely because for historical, cultural reasons, pinpointing the Welsh origin is really, really difficult. So this is my full-time job, and I'm not affiliated with any universities or any DNA testing companies. So I like it that way because I don't have a narrative which I have to stick to. So anything I show you here is just observations. So I'm not a traditional paper trail genealogist. I'm not a threat. Okay, so now the reason is that this is the furthest I can get with my direct male ancestor. Now this is my ancestor here is mentioned on the 12th of August 1915, and you can see I put it in red there. And this is quite remarkable. I'm the only person who can sit here probably in the world and tell you when, how their great-grandfather died in World War, at precisely what time, where he was buried, because on that day, the captain drew a map of the exact location, and I actually know the regiment that was facing opposite, and it was the Royal Württembergers, and it was a sniper from the Royal Württembergers, and you can see here at 4 AM, my great-grandfather shot in the head. So, but with him, my grandfather was an only child, so any family history is gone. So we have no family history whatsoever. And this would still not answer the origin of my bones. Even if he'd survived, I said, yes, we know we're from Dublin, basically. But it still wouldn't answer my deep question of where do my ancestors come from. So this is really interesting, but it doesn't answer my question. So I think we're
Clicker not working again?
okay, so now when I look back, this is, I didn't know this at the time, but when you look at your surname that revealed your Y-DNA test, what you're literally seeing is a snapshot of the surname that arose among related males and in a specific location at a specific time point. Now this is what I discovered later. So this is basically my brother's, so I gave my brother's DNA sample in this as a Christmas present, basically. It was a project I thought we both work on. But he lost interest in the science. So this is his August 2023 results. Now he tested in 2004, and when I looked at these results in 2004, I wasn't enough data. Not enough people had tested. Now back in 2010, it was time for me to have a look at these again. I had looked at them in 6 years. And in 2010, within that time frame, more people had tested. So you start to see a pattern emerge. And within that time also, some crucial papers on surnames and relatedness have been published by a group in Trinity College Dublin by Professor Dan Bradley, and was also part funded by a member of the Guinness family. So a direct descendant of Arthur Guinness, Patrick Guinness, funded this story, because he, like myself, was looking for the origin of his Guinness ancestors. So they funded research, and that research is absolutely crucial because it discovered surname Adams. The first guy to take the surname. This is how surnames appear. Some guy earns a surname, and then there's lots of progeny. And the surname, more people are around, and the surname gets more common. But some surnames die out, and some people acquire surnames non-paternally. But the surname Adams is crucial because it shows much of the graph how these were all related, and you can all track back to your surname Adams. But they also discovered that 50% of males with a surname won't be related to the surname Adams, because of non-paternal events over 1,000 years since the surname has appeared. So if you look at my results, this is the latest, my Y-DNA results, you can see that they're not random. So there's surnames here that recur among my results. So I matched their goals. So that immediately told me back in 2010, oh, I'm related to a Bowles Adams, because I don't know who these Bow or Bowles are. So I'm part of that 50% of males descended from a Bow Adam. And if you look at the other surnames, it's Carroll, Flanagan, Dooley. These surnames are recurring. So those guys are also descended from their surname Adam. So my shared ancestor with these guys is just before the appearance of surnames. So what you're seeing is that snapshot of the surnames that arose among the group of related males in a specific location and a specific time point. Now you see the Springer. So there's always one that stick out. The Springers actually record their earliest ancestor in Barbados, which, if you know from history, is where they shipped a lot of Irish plates in colonial times. And these guys change name and they end up in England or in America as Springer, and they're Protestant. And then when they email me, they go, "Hey, are you English? Are you Bowles?" I said, "No, we're Irish." And all his DNA matches Irish. So he's a non-paternal event, but that's a non-paternal event. The surname change, which we know where it happened and about what time it's happened. So this is where it gets interesting. So 2010, I'm looking at this and I can see this lovely pattern emerge of these surnames. And in 2010, the 1911 census of Ireland was also released. So I can then go and look and see where these surnames originate. So what I found is that any surname has 111, 67, and 37 marker level is literally reflecting those surnames that arose at that time point. And so what I'm concentrating on here is the Carrolls, Flanagans, and the Dooleys and the Purcells, purely because in brackets you see the frequency at which these surnames appear. So like there's 34 guys called Carroll in my DNA results. So what does that mean? So long story short, is that when you look, now what I do is I look at where farmers with the surname concentrate near the census data. And that's because lands, like your surnames, pass from father to son. So there's a link with the land and the Y chromosome. And when I examine where these surnames occur on a map, they all start to localize. Now this is using STR results. But when you use SNP results, it really cleans up this map. It gets really nice. So I spent a few years sort of making the tools that I would need to do this analysis for others, because I realized that in 2010, well, I could probably do this for other people. So I had to create all these maps showing, in this instance, basically where farmers with each surname concentrate their census data. And what you see, it's beautiful, is that you see your surname of origin at the center, and around it are the genetic relatives and the surname that they acquired. Now, the ones in red are like frequent, the ones in yellow are not so frequent matches, Y-DNA matches. Now, so I knew in myself that the way the DNA works is it's almost hierarchical, like a clan thing. You'll have the top clan, and then you'll have branches, as people earn surnames, you get your own. It's almost like the mafia, you get your own family. And this is what happens. So you can see branches. Now in my DNA, the big guys, the Carrolls, they're the big guys. My ancestors in there in the center, in the south niche, but the Carrolls are the big guys that dominate my Y-DNA results. And you always see this, there's always a clan that dominates your Y-DNA matches, the top guys. It's almost like a branching. Now, interestingly, I also see matches with Purcell. And that's because the Normans come in 1169 AD. And some of my genetic relatives end up in Norman territory and they get assimilated by the Normans and they can become its names. So I can tell by my Y-DNA results that my ancestors living in Leash, but it's also a borderland between Gaelic North and Norman South. So it's all reflected in your Y-DNA matches. And this is where my ancestors live, within this area here, and I believe it's about 1,000 years ago at the appearance of surnames. And I also knew from Ireland, you can't go anywhere in Ireland without a sign telling you where you are. And it often reflects the clans that lived in the surrounding area. And right in the middle, just there where my ancestors is Bowes Crossroads. It's on an old ordnance survey map. You'd never see it in a Google Earth, but it's on an ordnance survey map from 1840. And a Bowes Crossroads. So, and you can see the surrounding area, if that's in Gaelic, like Strabo, Bow can also mean Captain or victorious in Gaelic. So these ones that you could argue, no, they're not doing the surname, but Bowes Crossroads you can't argue with. So, if you think of this from a Y-DNA perspective and a tourist, and your Y-DNA is what's showing your Bowes, you've got to be on Bowes Crossroads to get your photo taken somewhere on the line, and I've seen people do that. So, now, my closest matches put my ancestor in Ireland. But when you go back to the 25 marker level, so you're only seeing surnames here that only appear at the 25 marker level, and there's a change. They go from Irish at the exact match, Beacon and Kerry. All of a sudden I've got Henderson and Nesbitt's. Good Scottish surname, good Scottish Lowlander surnames there. And I've got Smith's, quite a common name, you've got Whitehead, another Scottish name, Walker, Johnston. So this tells me that my deeper ancestry is coming via Scotland, and it's lowland Scotland. So there's my claim to Scottish ancestry. So I knew this process because of the shared ancestry with Scotland and Irish, I could apply this to Scotland. And this is what one of my course recruits, this was Ross Valentine, this is my brother-in-law. Now, this makes me very proud because you look at that, it's chocolate block with just Scottish surnames. It's quite striking. The ones in violet there are surnames that can be Scottish or Irish, and Campbell can be Irish, believe it or not. There's quite a lot of Irish Campbells. But it is, and you can see the locations these guys record are all quite striking. But there's a surprise. So if I look at this, oh, here we go. He matches other Valentine, so that tells me he's descended from a Valentine Adam. That forced guy to take that Valentine surname. But his matches are dominated by Buchanan's, by the other one is let's see, McGregor's, 59 McGregor's, 62 Campbell's, 10 Campbell's. Let's look at those ones. So when I look at them in a map, whoa, something's wrong here. Because I don't have that lovely Valentine's right in the middle of that red circle. So I was wondering what is going on here. Now I don't know any Scottish history when I'm doing these results. So I have to try and figure out what's going on. Now when I look at the map, I'm looking for that nice surname in the center. That's rather than McGregor, it should say Valentine according to the DNA. But it's McGregor. So McGregor's right in the center. Oh, I've cut out the Highlands at the top there. But you can see them surrounded by all these surnames with the red arrows, that his surnames are at his 167 and 27 marker level. And there's the Campbells again. So I have to make the tools, but I'm just interested in what surname is associated with what location. And I base that based on castle locations, where they are, and what families are associated with them. So you can see the McGregors are up there, and you have the Campbells, and the Buchanans, and the Stewarts, and the Drummonds. These guys frequently in his DNA matches. So what's happened? Well, from my analysis, his ancestor was a McGregor, originally a McGregor. And there's McGregor, lots of McGregor place names there. These three castles here are historically associated with the McGregors at some point. They usually become Campbell castles at some point when the McGregors are basically outlawed. So Ross Valentine's cow ancestor was from the chiefly line of Conor McGregor. And how can I claim that? Well, there's the chief there. You can see McGregor of McGregor. He's there. And that is the actual chief. I've put out the personal names for data protection, but there he is, Fan McGregor. So this is great because I now have a time point at which Ross's ancestor becomes a Valentine. And so I was doing this I think I was doing this in 2015, 16, 17, the act comes in, it's 400 years exactly. This is great. This is all falling into place. So when I'm looking at the STRs, Russell's match to the clan chief is at a distance of 3 at 67. So there's 3 Y-DNA STR differences within that 400 time year period. So this is the time scale I came up with. So if you're an exact match, your shared paternal ancestor with that exact match is within the first 100 years, or last 100 years. And then the minus 1, 100, 200, and so forth. So this is great because I've now got a time frame to plot all these relationships. But the problem is that these are short, so STRs are like short repetitive sequences of DNA, can be amplified or deleted with each generation, and they're not great. But it's a start. So this is going back and I'm putting a time frame together for the 111 marker, 67, and 37, and it actually works best at 111 markers. So the more markers you test, the more accurate the sort of time frame becomes. But then big Y500 SNP testing appears in 2017. Now again, I have to play a waiting game because I need enough people to be testing to see enough data appear. Now this is I did a case study for Mr. McGuinness. This was probably about 2015. I did this case study, and I pinpointed an origin just east of this modern city of Derry, Londonderry, just in the farmland just east of there. And I said, look, with all of my customers, I say, look, you can go and recruit because they'll still be there. There'll still be McGuinness is there. And he went and recruited globally, and they all came back and matched to him. And then they all did big Y500 SNP testing, and I thought, this is brilliant. This gives me so much data to work with. Because I know there are STR differences, I can now work out how many SNP differences there are between all these related guys. Most of them are McGuinness. Here's my Patrick T. McGuinness, the guy who recruits all the other guys. And you can see the leeches, they're non-paternal events, they're McGuinness in disguise, or closet McGuinness. So what I can see then is I've got an average of 5 SNP mutations occurring within a 300-year time period. And that's 60 years for each SNP mutation. And I can also then go back because they also have 7 SNPs that they all share. And that allows me to estimate that the guy, their McGuinness Adam, lived at around 1400 AD, and he was living just close to the foil estuary in around 1400 AD. And it's great because it gives me a nice little accurate time frame for putting his ancestor, the McGuinness founding ancestor, in X location. But it also allows me now to date the SNPs. So I've got 2 timetables, STR and SNP, which you can see the problem with the STRs is FTDNA only ever see a very limited amount of mutations in the STRs and who you match. Some people don't get any matches because FTDNA has set the match threshold quite stringently, but that's not the case with the SNPs. You can literally walk back on your Y-DNA, your SNP tree, so which is ideal. So I don't use this STR timetable anymore. I'm left with these SNPs. So now I can reconstruct the paternal ancestral journey and test out my timetable of that 60 years for a SNP mutation. Now, before I go on, I have to point out there's a couple of things you have to realize with human history, migration history. Our ancestors were far less mobile. Now, if you grew up in Ireland, you know this lady here, she's probably the most reviled person in Irish history, it's Kate. Because every school child in my age had to study her life story. And she was raised in Kerry. She only spoke Gaelic. She was born just after the famine. And if you're living in Ireland in the 80s, you can't relate to this lady whatsoever. And the only thing I remember about Kay is that she gets married at 21. She's lived 5 miles from the ocean, but it wasn't until she married a fisherman that she actually saw the ocean. I gave up on Kay after that. That was just, I couldn't relate to this. But it's she's a fascinating lady, she's a bit of a revival now. I think time has gone, kinder on her, and we're starting to review what her life story basically. But I also have to point out, not everybody migrates. When you see these migration maps, you're thinking, oh, my ancestors they've all gone. But no, we always need a trace in their place of origin. Not everybody migrates. And the best example is colonization of the New World by Europeans. Not every European ends up in America. And not all the Native Americans disappeared. Okay, so, they get swamped, some die from usually disease and war. And what often happens with Native Americans is they get pushed westward. And that's something you see with native populations in a location, you see them getting pushed to the periphery. And I'll show that a little bit later. But the great thing is that geographically shared paternal ancestry is exhibited in your Y-DNA, SDR, and SNP matches maps. FDD may show you this, it's there, you can see it. And I'll show you now. So this is my brother's 25 marker matches, so they're both paternal ancestral matches. Now, there's a pattern there. If you look at this 12 marker matches, you can literally retrace the River Rhine in Central Europe. And I haven't cleaned this up. So lots of these guys show, like cities where their ancestors were. I haven't cleaned this. I used to do these studies for people. I used to reconstruct the journey with these markers. And then FDA started doing that. I thought, it's there. I can't compete with that. They've already done it. Now, that for me is very different from this. So this is Seamus Gallagher. I've done this guy's DNA result. Now, Seamus has RM128. My family is RM269, so the most common Western European haplogroup. Seamus has a very much a Scandinavian haplogroup. And Seamus's ancestor, I can pinpoint them up there in Donegal. And his ancestors were Vikings, and they end up in Donegal. Now, the great thing is actually the clue is in the name. Gallagher in Ireland means foreign helper. Someone who helps the foreigners. Or, in his case, he's a foreigner who's helping out with the local Gaels. So the clues are always, lots of clues there, it's just trying to see where they are. So these are quite striking, and these are very different. So this is when I say Celtic in Ireland, they're both really bronze in the audience, but I can't call them anything else. The Greeks call them Celts, the Romans call them Gauls. So this is Celtic Gaulish DNA signature, and that's a Viking one on the right. So very different. So I now have a way of pinpointing an origin, but also determining sort of ethnicity. And I can then look at I've taken a selection of 300 cases from Ireland, 300 from Scotland, and I'm going, what do they tell me? And I've classified them all here. Now, I don't like that map, so I have to sort that out. Right, let's put a bit of colour in it. And this is the maps I came up with. Now, this is great because straight away in Ireland, you see a north-south divide. Does that sound familiar? There's a north-south divide in Ireland. Surprise, surprise. It's a Gaulish north, Gaul or Gael north, and it's a Brittonic south. I'm a Brittonic south, and as I say, I have the stats here actually. So about 32% of case studies I see coming into me from males with pre-plantation Irish ancestry have this Gaulish or Gael Northern Irish DNA marker, but it's the Brittonic South that sort of dominates 50%. Ireland has that Neolithic. We have 5% Neolithic, which is striking because they're all along the Shannon estuary. They've been pushed west. I have it there, IP37, just along the Shannon in yellow. It's quite striking, I can believe it. Now, what I also see it is, we've got some Galaglass, so the mercenary Scots, we always got the Scots in to fight our battles. So, and we've actually got quite little Viking DNA. It's actually quite hard to find, and when I find it, it's all from Donegal, where you get the Gallagher's. So, now if I look at that and I compare it to Scotland, you have an east-west divide. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, it's in the DNA. So you've got a Gaelic west, almost perfect east-west divide, and a Brittonic east. As yet, I can't distinguish the Pictish from the southern Brittonic, but their surnames are always very different. So I'm trying to, that's the next mark I want to try to tease out to see if I can get that Pictish distinguished from the southern and see if there's a north-south divide there. But at the moment, I cannot distinguish between Scottish, Brittonic, north or south. But what you can see is that there's actually less Neolithic DNA. I think it's about 1%. That's quite low compared to Ireland, which is over 4%. And the Celts, still, I'm bracketing all the Celts. So when I say Celts, I mean anyone who's arrived between 800 BC and maybe 200 AD. And that counts for 79%. Roman DNA is a whopping nearly 4%. And you find it with exotic markers, they're usually Mediterranean markers, and they're always along Roman roads and forts. So they've left their DNA, particularly in Dumfriesshire, right near where is it? There's Burns and I can't remember the names of the forts, but there's a Roman road that runs right up through there, and there's some Kilpatricks. They're one of the surnames, always British, maybe they always come up with sort of Roman markers. And if I look at the surnames, there's a surname called Rome in Dumfriesshire.
What about between fourth and the third?
What's that?
You see the fourth and the
Yeah,
five?
yeah, that's Viking.
Okay, because that's where the Antonine Wall is.
Yeah, I never find Viking or Roman above that.
Yeah,
I never find it.
below it.
Yeah, I do, yeah. So, and also Viking 10%. Now, Anglo-Saxon, I haven't been able to pick it up. I think it's just because it's difficult. They're coming from an area where you have a big mix, and then they're bringing the same markers in, so it's very hard to identify. I've got one where I can say it's Anglo-Saxon, and it's in the southeast. So as I say, that was something when I love the research. Research didn't pay the bills, but I love doing this sort of stuff. All right, so now we know what the ancestral journeys look like because there's been an explosion in ancient DNA testing. Now I'll get to a young case study in a second. But this book here is great because David Wright, you can actually listen to this for free online. Now he describes this journey here, and what's amazing is, so I have picked this young DNA case study, and based on what David's telling me, we can get them back to the Celts, which is in the Central Europe. You should be able to get them back there to Yamnaya, which is the steppe of Russia, then back up to Eurasia, and in Eurasia there's a split between Native Americans and the Yamnaya. Now the way the big Y-DNA works, I should see this if I go back in. So what does it reveal? So I was interested now, how far can I go back and how accurate is that time frame that I have up to 60 years? So I'm thinking 60 years, but if you think of that practically, it's more like 75 years, because if you think about it, you know, a grandson should expect to differ based on the 60 years, to differ from his grandfather in one SNP mutation, if I'm correct. Now, I did email David Wright. I haven't got a reply. I'm trying to find out what the academics think is the time frame for a Y-DNA mutation. Now, in this book, he says we still don't know, but the book is a few years old now. But I haven't heard a reply from him.
What's the haplogroup? What's the haplogroup on the young?
I'll show you. It'll come up.
Okay.
So at the moment, so I started this. I was doing this for I think show. Yep. So I was interested in how far back can get, how accurate this is, it can be retraced that journey as described by David Wright. So, but I was looking at this when it hit me. There's a problem here because these aren't linear relationships. This isn't linear. A linear relationship is this son, the father, the grandfather, great-grandfather, great-great. That's linear. And that's where I'd expect to see the SNP mutation, 2 SNP mutations in that 150 years. But nobody can prove it because who's going to pick the great-great-great-grandfather? Yeah, so that's the problem. What you actually are looking at when you're looking at those big Y results are innumerable branches of the same paternal ancestral tree. But that's great. Because at the most, these can be only 25 years, a generation. It can't be less, it can't be more. It's got to be a generational 25 years for each of these SNPs along the side. So how does that and this is pretty, you know, if you think about it, I think this makes sense. But how does it work? I can test this now. So one SNP equals 25 years. And this places the youngs, the founding young Adam, up in Elgin at 675 years old. That's pretty good. That's your guy. Now, when he's there, his neighbors take the Sutherland surname and some take the Brown surname. And you get that nice little map showing them all around Elgin. Very nice. So I know there's an ancestor and I find that 675 years. So that's my starting point. Now this is great. So as I go further back, I have to, let's forget about surnames. I'm only interested in locations. Where do these people record their earliest ancestor? So let's go back. So I'm walking up that big Y. I'm ticking, and I want to see where all the matches suddenly go, oh, we're in Central Europe. And that occurs at 73 SNP mutations. And that indicates a shared ancestor using the 25 years per SNP at 1,825 years ago, which is actually quite early. I thought, well, that would mean his ancestors coming in quite late into Britain. He's gone all the way up into northern Scotland, and he's been absorbed into the Picts. So I was surprised at that. I thought, well, this isn't a good start, but it's possible. So next I'm looking for that. Let's go back beyond and look for that Eurasian steppe link to the Y-DNA, because it's the Y-DNA that bring in the M269, and that's the haplogroup of these young. So, and I get that at a whopping 181 SNPs, which is equivalent to 2,500 BC, and that's actually quite good. That is good. It's on the lower range, but it's good. And you can clearly see it there, Uzbekistan and Russia. And look at all to the left there, M269, it's Britain and Ireland and Germany dominating. So, does it get any better? What happens when I go even further back? I would say big Y is great. You can try this with your own results and see how these patterns emerge. Now this, I walk up and I keep going, and this is great because FTDNA usually cut you off at some point. But we're going all the way up, we hit 443 SNP mutations, and boom, there's the Native Americans and the Mexicans. And there's the branching point between the Indo-Europeans and the Native Americans, just as David Wright describes in his book. In the commercial DNA test result. This is brilliant. The problem is I've underestimated that time. So I have had 443 SNP mutations, each one 25 years. I have it at 11,000 years, but he's estimated that time point at 14,300 years. So it looks as like I'm going back, and the further I go back, that time discrepancy is being amplified. So here we go. This is the sort of summary. So you can see the ones I'm interested in is the Central European ones, where I get on the Gauls, Celts, Central European. Yeah, that could be in the time frame that just later rivals into mainland Britain and then up to Scotland. The Eurasian one is good. You know, I'd say it's not bad, but we're underestimating the Y-DNA and Western European and Native American branch points. And it's getting more exaggerated as we move back in time. But if you think about it, that makes sense. Because the variable here is human population history through time and life expectancy. You know, there's 8 billion humans alive today. This is your time frame from, you know, the last 16,000 years. So I'm trying to figure out a way of how do I now play around with the play around with a generation, maybe add on 5 years and have it as 40 years, see how it affects. I haven't done any of that yet because I'm trying to see if there's any guys with a mathematical background that can pick a formula that would compensate for this as you go back in time. But it is interesting because what it shows you is that in your commercial DNA results, which I have to point out the academics don't see, because very few academics do commercial DNA testing, that they're missing out on a lot of information with this data. So that's the point I got to there. I got to put that on hold. I'm trying to get some feedback from the academics. It's not coming because I suspect they've all got their own time points. They're not telling me. I told them. They're not telling me. They're just typical.
Yeah.
So that's that was my sort of what I got interested in recently. But these are my past observations, and these are my observations. But as I say, I'd like to tell you, this is only what I see, so I'm just relaying what I see in the results. So most males today in Britain and Ireland have earlier detectable links with the Rhine River Valley and earlier with Bohemians, so they're going east. Now, I've seen a lot, you watch YouTube, and I've sort of grown because I see an Iberian origin. Now, there might be an Iberian origin, but it might be that earlier forced farmers. But they don't account for the majority of British and Irish males, which is a Celtic-Gaulish signature. Now, the problem is with the Neolithics, you can't really reconstruct using the STRs. I haven't looked at them yet because you don't see anything in mainland Europe, which obviously means they've been in Britain and Ireland for quite a long time. But I haven't looked at them yet on the SNPs, walking them back through the big world. Now, the other thing that stands out to me is when I put all the time frames together, everything comes back to Julius Caesar's impact in Italy. I'm like, this guy, he changes European history. It's no wonder we're fascinated with Rome even today. It's because Rome changes everything. Rome ensures that Europe's future, Rome ensures that the future is Roman and not Gaulish. And if you think about that, if they hadn't conquered Gaul, in mainland Europe, they'd be speaking something akin to modern Gaelic. And in Britain and Ireland, they'd be speaking something akin to modern Welsh. So if you look at it from that perspective, that's quite remarkable. Now the Gaels, from what I can determine, are the last arrivals from the Rhine River Valley, and they're pushed out by the Romans, from the Roman conquest of Gaul. That's what I see. That's what I'm reporting here. Now, some people, if they see that, and it's contrary to what you say. But if you think about it, if you're descended from refugees, you're not going to tell your history if I'm descended from refugees picked out by the Romans. You're going to reinvent yourself. You're going to reinvent your origin history. But there are some clans like the Chapmans that claim descent from Gaulish tribes like the Chattai. And there are links there. There are sort of oral histories there. Not much, but they are there. So the other thing is that the Scottish Gaels, so I showed you Ross's DNA signature there, they don't have links to Ireland. So your Scottish Gaels, and I'm Irish, I'd love to claim the Scots as Irish, I'd love to claim it, but I don't see it. The confusion has arisen because if I look back to Ross's DNA results and further back, it's getting more and more Gaelic or Gaelic with the Mac surnames, and they're all going back to the Isle of Skye. And I'm thinking, what? The Isle of Skye is an island off the west coast of Scotland. So is Ireland. It's a big island off the west coast of Scotland. So is Ireland. But on the map of Ptolemy, the Isle of Skye is stiffest. Sounds very like Scottish. And what happens is when the Romans leave, these Gaels, and of course, they've been raiding the Roman world for what, how many years? 600 years they've been raiding the frontiers of Rome. There's grievance there, there's history there. And when they leave, it's the Scots that come out of their island home, but it's the Isle of Skye, and they conquer Scotland. So for the Scots, the Gaelic Scots, or one branch of the Gaelic Scots, it's the Isle of Skye is your genetic homeland. So, and the reverse is true. So for Irish males, like myself, I have the technical roots in Scotland. They're coming in by Scotland. Unless your ancestors came to the Normans, they're all coming in by Scotland. It's the shortest crossing. It makes sense. Now there is Gaelic Irish input into Scotland, but it occurs in Galloway in 1100 AD. We all think that the Viking Age ends in 1066. No, they're still prowling around Scotland, and Magnus Fairlegs is still conquering parts of Ireland and Scotland in 1100 AD. And what he does, and he's killed in Ireland by his Irish allies, which tells you a lot. The days of the Vikings are over. But Magnus recruited his army from where those Gallagher's were, Donegal. And he's taken, so the Irish Gaels and Vikings have conquered Galloway. But Magnus is killed. And then the Irish, they split with the, so west of the river, the Gaels get, because that's where all the Gaelic Irish signature is. And east is where the Vikings settled. And I can see that on the maps and surnames that I see. So this is, just going back to the Romans, I was thinking this, when I'm sitting down, it's the Rhine River Valley. This is the sort of big event that changes everything. This battle, you can imagine it. If you're a Gaul and you're getting hammered by the Germans, the distant cousins who are just more ferocious than you, and you have to go west, you can't go into Germany, they're going to slaughter you. You hit the Romans. Julius Caesar needs money for his campaign. What do? You're defeated by the Romans, you either get enslaved, you try and go back east and face the Germans, or do you head down the Rhine and into safety among the Britons, who you know are your distant cousins, they're going to take you. And I think there's a lesson here with the refugees. It isn't a common thing, it's not an uncommon thing, refugees turning up on British shores. This is history repeating itself. But so this would have been all right if not for the fact that the Romans conquered Britain. But Julius Caesar comes in, I suppose the Gaels or the refugees hang around, but there's history there. And once the Romans arrive in 43 AD, they go up north. They take refuge in Ireland, they take refuge in the north, In Scotland, they take refuge in the Isle of Skye, and they took at least 3 Y-DNA markers with them, 3 distinct Y-DNA markers, and I have them here. So actually, so when I look at Gaelic Scotland, the maximum extent of Gaelic surnames, that's that clear east-west divide. So you see it there, and it actually changing to here, but the Scots that don't even realise that Galloway is Gaelic. I had to listen to the radio, I listened to the rest of politics, and Rory Stewart was saying that Gaelic was never spoken in lowland Scotland. There's the map to show you. Gaelic goes extinct, and the reason why the plantation of Ulster is so successful is that those guys from Galloway that went over to Ulster were bilingual. They spoke the language. They were always kin to the Gaelic Irish. That's why it was so successful. And the irony is that many of the planter Scots today, the descendants, actually carry deeper Irish markers because their ancestors had gone from Donegal to Galloway, and then 500 years later have gone from Galloway, but it's English-speaking Protestant Scots who also spoke Gaelic back into Ireland. That's remarkable. I have a nice slide there, I should have showed it, but there's 4 guys, they're all united by the same marker.
Close, yeah.
So there's 3 markers that these Gauls put with them. One is now, it's actually I should have changed that because I've narrowed it down to RL, DL21, I think it is. Yeah. I think that's it. I should have changed that. IM223. Now that marker is interesting because that's also could have come by earlier Neolithic, or not Neolithic, Neolithic forced farmers. So I haven't yet teased out IM223, whether it's a contribution vote, because stories are never this clear. There's always a bit of something else going on. So IM223 is a bit difficult. IM223, so when the Romans come in to the southwest, they all start into Ulster and leave their IM223 in Ulster, and then they all go back again, but leave another population. And Patrick Guinness, the Guinness family, carries that IM223. And they're McGuinness of Southeast Ulster with this Scots-Irish, because it's in Ireland and Scotland, DNA marker. But we can see there in the Roman sites of Scotland, again, where those Gaelic markers are, you don't get them on that colonised Roman area. So, I hope I haven't kept this too long, but this is my full-time job. I don't describe the Y-DNA testing. I do the kernel on it, but it's much more difficult. There's a lot less DNA. The time frames are massive, but you can sometimes do it. And I do autosomal testing. That is very interesting because as the more people test, the more with autosomal DNA testing, I can identify areas, like 10 areas, and then you give me your surname, and I go, well, this is where your surnames fit. And it's really, really nice. Now, even if you don't have DNA, if you have Scots Irish ancestry, you come to me and say, I have Irwins in 5 miles down, just near Fermanagh, Tyrone border, and I'll go, well, that's easy, because I just have to look at the plantation surnames in that area and go, they're a mirror image of the plantation surname, of the Scottish surnames in Dumfriesshire. And it's really that easy. And actually, you can literally reconstruct the plantation of Ulster based on where all these surnames are found, because it was a family affair. They brought the families with them, but they came in their communities. And as they moved, as they settled, land became available, and they moved again. It was the same families moving, and it's really, really easy. But I say, I'm an academic, or I was an academic, and it's nothing worse than not seeing any, or seeing something behind the paywall. So I try and make as much as I can free to view. I put case studies up there for people to view them. These maps are all available to view online. I'm automating everything. Because, as I say, a computer program can recognize these surnames, and then they can go, well, they're all linking back to exaltation. So that's what I'm doing at the moment, and I hope to automate absolutely everything. So you upload your autosomal, your Y-DNA, or your surnames, and you get a report, and I can retire. So, no, I probably have to just do research all the time. But I have to charge for this. As I say, I can't, I'd love to make it free, maybe Ancestry.com to sponsor it, and I'd like to I'd put it as free, but not at the moment. It's all paid. This part, the analysis, is a service basically. So And that just remains me to thank you for your time.
Thank you.